Welcome back to Inspiring Entrepreneurs. I'm Katie McNair, Communications Manager here at Inspire, and today we're going to be blowing up one of the biggest lies that students are told, and that is that you need to know everything before you make a start. Spoiler alert, you don't. With me are Johnny and Dana, chapter leads of Fun Nights Glasgow, which is a movement where entrepreneurs share their biggest mistakes publicly. What they've learned will make you rethink confidence, failure, and why comparing yourself to others is the fastest way to feel stuck. By the end of this conversation, you're going to have tools you can actually use when self-doubt hits. So let's get started. Johnny, Dana, you have done something that many people would find absolutely terrifying, and you've dragged failure, which many of us do our very best to avoid, out into the spotlight. So tell us, why should we try to celebrate something that most of us would like to avoid?
Yeah, I think the main reason or the main thing behind us doing what we've done is we're actually reading a report yesterday. We'd done a funding thing, so this is why I know this, and it turns out that 6 out of 10 people in Scotland don't pursue opportunities because they're afraid of failing. But that's insane, right? So 6 out of 10 people in a room won't pursue something because they're afraid of getting it wrong. So where's the help? Where do we start? And this is the kind of main message behind our events, if you want to encourage people to be more at ease with getting things wrong and more comfortable with trying new things and taking calculated risks.
I think it's that worry about wanting to stand out or not wanting to stand out, I suppose, for the wrong reason. I remember talking about that 6 out of 10. I suppose if you flip that on its head, you think, well, if you're one of the 4 who's willing to give it a go, then you're already in the front section of the race, really, aren't you? And so if we can have more confidence, then it's only going to help us. But I remember hearing about it was an experiment that looked at what people would do if they're in a room. You had people sitting in a room and they didn't know that they were taking part in this kind of experiment. They knew they were taking part in an experiment, but they weren't sure exactly what it was. And they would sit with someone else in the room. Someone else was an actor, and smoke would begin to come under the door, or they'd put an alarm off or something. And if there was an actor in the room who did nothing, the person who was in the room would also not do anything. They wouldn't leave, even though it looked like there was something quite wrong with the situation they were in. They wouldn't leave because they didn't want to be seen to make a mistake and be, maybe we need to leave, or show fear or get it wrong. Whereas if they were in the room by themselves without the actor who did nothing, they would leave to save themselves.
Wow.
So I think it's very true that people are just so worried about getting things wrong, and that can be a really difficult thing to get over. Do either of you have your own version of the moment when you realised, well, actually self-doubt or that fear doesn't need to disqualify you?
Oh, good question. I think the first time we've ever done like our Fun Nights event, we had like roughly 60 people come along, and I was so critical of how it went. And I think looking back now, it's like 60 people came to see us. 60 people came to an event that we're doing for the first time, something that's completely new to Glasgow and Scotland, and that's something to be proud of. So I think we need to start rethinking how we view certain things of life and achievements that we've done.
Yeah. I think often the hardest bit is the first part. And then when you start, like, we're very self-critical and self-deprecating because I think we're both perfectionists and everything has to be perfect, but in reality doesn't have to be that way. You know, you just have to start and you have to get out there and explore new things and try new things. Sometimes they might work. Like, we both think our first event didn't work, but we had 60 people turned up, and from there we've grown and we've developed.
And people are still turning up, so we're doing something right. But it just helped us to redefine things as well and get feedback, because if people don't like something, they tend to give you more feedback and you learn more. So that was definitely a valuable step for us. We learned a lot, and each event we're making it better, but it's also reflecting on how we are as humans as well, and how we act and how we change.
I think that's so interesting. So do you think it is about reframing the idea of failure as feedback, and instead a chance for you to pay attention to the things, like you say, people are more likely to notice and maybe comment on the things that they're not so happy with, and rather than take that and think, well, this means it's no good and I just have to throw it in the bin? Is it about thinking about it as feedback as opposed to a sign that you should stop?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we were very harsh on ourselves. Personally, I was. I think you were better with it. I was very harsh on myself. And if you look at our events now, it's like we've shifted it quite a lot, but it made it better, at least we think. And we have a bigger audience now as well. So we're doing something right for sure.
So many students, I think, feel that being confident means having it all figured out and knowing exactly what it is you want something to be, that sense of perfection that you talked about. What do you think is the biggest myth about having confidence?
All right, okay. I'm going to go off on one here. So anyone under 40, confidence should be your greatest enemy, right? You should not want to feel confident because confidence ultimately comes from doing things multiple times. Confidence comes with experience, right? And that's not something you gain as a student or as somebody that's young and developing. You should always want to push yourself. You should always want to, achieve new things. And as you go and do that, you're going to be uncomfortable, right? So you almost have to rewire your brain in terms of that, being uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay, so actually what you're saying here is that confidence is not where you want to be.
Yeah.
I think you have to be like in that state of discomfort to reach
Yeah.
a certain level of comfortableness.
Yeah, there's like a whole philosophy behind this, right? So there's like I can't remember the name of the philosopher, but basically you have to be in this zone. It's like called the stretch zone.
Okay.
So you can't be in the middle, which is like comfort. You can't be too far to the right, which is stressed. You always just have to be in this uncomfortable place in order to achieve maximum growth.
So that's something I find really interesting, actually, Johnny, because this idea of the comfort, and I hadn't actually thought of it in terms of that way, that if you've got comfort on this side, too far the other way is stress.
Yeah.
And it's that bit in the middle where you can get better without tipping into it just being too much.
Yeah.
And finding that point can be quite a tricky place to find. Do you have any tips for that?
I think we watched ourselves grow, since I was never really a public speaker, or I think I'm an extrovert with friends and family, but like going out in front of crowds or approaching even a person I never knew because they're like, I don't know, they're cool or they're doing a cool business. And Johnny always pushed me to like go speak to them, go network, and just doing that so many times, I got more comfortable with it. And then I go back home and hibernate. But Johnny was never a public speaker, and I forced him to do intros with me for our events, and I watched him grow so much as well, like from maybe being so nervous and holding a piece of paper to now just doing all these amazing events and just going out and being himself. And he's can talk more freely than myself now.
Yeah.
And it's really like a proud moment to watch all of that.
Yeah. I think the thing is, like, so before we done this event, we had a solar thing together. And basically, like, I was just like this nervous wee scientist that didn't really know what I was doing, and like standing in front of people, I was like, no, leave me alone. I want to go back and like design and do whatever calculations. And it's about surrounding yourself with people that have a different set of skills to you. Mm-hmm. And like you see Dana comes in a room, and you're like, okay, wow, okay, she's got a presence about her. So like taking her and bringing her on board in a team, and then pushing her out and saying, you need to go and do this. This is something I hate doing. And then just kind of combining those skills together. It's ultimately made me grow as well, because I can't let her do all the work, so I have to kind of help her out a little bit.
It's hard work. It doesn't it gets easier with time, but it's still like I never feel 100% comfortable walking into a room because there's that pressure, but that's what helps me grow and make myself better.
So it's a continuous process. You're always going to be getting that little bit better, being that little bit uncomfortable. As you grow, you're going to be in situations that are new to you all the time. So I suppose even past 40, which I am, there's still cause to not necessarily pursue confidence and instead pursue that discomfort, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think
I can see that. So it sounds like you two are a great team, because I listened to you talking about the things, I guess, that you've helped each other with, and you've helped each other grow and you've taken inspiration from each other and the skills that each other have. I think something that maybe students might find is, we're always scrolling, we're seeing other people, their highlight reel, essentially. We were talking before we began about LinkedIn, and we're talking about Instagram. You're seeing this highlight reel, even when you're chatting to people face to face, they're giving you the very best version of their lives that there is. So how do we stop comparison from spiraling into this feeling of, I'm just never going to measure up to that, I've already failed?
Yeah, I think the greatest tax young people face today in terms of growing is this imposter syndrome, right? Which you get from being on your phones, and it's such like a massive issue. And this is the thing you have to pay to grow as a person, right? You have to get over that feeling like you don't belong. And like we had that feeling maybe when did we do the Kudo talk? Maybe 2 months ago. We were standing in front of a room doing a public speaking event to like 250 creatives, and like being in a room in front of creatives when you come from a university setting is very, very intimidating. But it's just a case of like dealing with these pressures, and it's almost like rewiring your brain. You want to have that signal where it comes and it's like you get nervous and you feel that pressure. That signal is actually a good thing, because it's helping you grow and it's helping you develop. And it's almost like trying to reframe it in your mind.
It's a good thing. And if you don't have it, you don't grow as much. So having that, I still have imposter syndrome, but I've started viewing it differently as something that's good and something that's, again, out of my comfort zone. So I'm like, okay, if this is out of my comfort zone, I need to do it and push myself.
Yeah.
So,
and I think on entrepreneurs, like, all these business people always talk about getting to the next room and getting to the next conversation, right? And that's how you, like, it's a way of framing it. Like, if you feel like you don't belong, it means you're getting to that next room. It means you're driving yourself forward to get to your ultimate end goal.
So again, it feels like you're always flipping this idea of, rather than seeing these signals of, I feel nervous, I'm not sure if I belong, looks like they're doing better than me, am I an imposter here? They're actually all good signs.
They are, yeah.
And because it means that you're putting yourself in that zone where you can be growing and you can be stretching.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take that away. I'm definitely going to take that away today. So soon we're going to talk about why failure actually can be a really good networking tool, because you starting to sort of lean into that. But before we do, I wanted to ask, if a student or a graduate is facing self-doubt, is there something, an action that you can recommend they take to help them strengthen their mindset?
I do like, this is maybe a bit strange, but I do like breathing techniques, like through your nose. So like if you do really short breaths, like in through your nose and out through your mouth, that tends to like eradicate your nerves.
Okay.
And also there's like a marine technique where if you press really hard on your hand here, is supposed to like relieve stress. So sometimes like I'll be standing on stage like squeezing my hand, just like relieving the stress like through, I don't know, play almost. But yeah, do you do anything?
something I've read recently is apparently there's a technique where you have to count backwards, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, to reset your brain in a way.
Okay.
So when you go out and you're in that panic mode, or if you're just don't know or forgot a line, you count backwards, and it's supposed to reset your brain, and just you start from where you from scratch again. Apparently that works. I forgot whose technique that is, but yeah, somebody can look it up.
Maybe there's a Mel Robbins thing around that, because I think that's maybe about, I haven't read her book, but I'm aware of her talking about this kind of getting started thing of, it's almost like a rocket launch. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then when you get to 0, you're going to go, because that's what you do. I can see how that might be useful. So as host of Fun Nights Glasgow, you've met many people who openly talk about messing up. So if a student was to say, I'm the only one without a plan, what would you tell them? Do you think that everyone to an extent is actually just winging it?
To an extent, but the older I've got and the more people I've talked to, I view chaos as a good thing because I'm a chaotic person. But at the end of the day, there has to be some type of structure to it. There has to be some type of defined goals there. So like, for example, myself, I set a goal every 3 months, and it's written, we've got this board in the kitchen and we write our 3-month target on it. right? And then every day you have many steps, and then going, so like the 3-month target might be, I don't know, building a website, right? And then you've got 90 days to then achieve that goal. But in those 90 days, it's chaos. Anything goes. Like, I can do whatever I want, but at the end of the 3 months period, you know, that goal has to be done. And if it's not done, then there's like a whole reflection process. Why is it not being done? That we both kind of go through and talk about. But I would say winging it is good to an extent, but there has to be some form of structure. And if a student doesn't have a plan, I would always tell them to go and try new things, go and try whatever it is you might think you would enjoy. And if you don't enjoy it, go and do something else. But at the end of the day, you always have to have a plan, and you always have to have stepping stones in order to go and achieve that plan or that goal.
Yeah, there's beauty in chaos. I think your chaos is structured chaos as well.
Yeah.
Different brain wiring
Yeah.
to mine.
There's a famous, I was reading this book, I can't remember, it's like the new, something about like scientific data, and there's a quote from it that says, weird people get weird results, normal people get normal results.
Okay.
So if you want to be normal, do normal things. And if you want to be weird and, I don't know, run like a startup, which is a weird thing to do, you know, do weird things. But it comes with the challenge as well. Like, doing a weird thing, you've got a higher percentage of failing, right? So you need to be okay with that. But you've got a higher percentage chance of doing like extraordinarily well.
So it is about being accepting of who you are and what you are, so that when the failure comes, you can think, well, that's part of this process. I've got this goal.
Yeah.
I really like this idea of like a 3-month goal, and then there being allowed to be utter chaos on that way.
Yeah.
Because as someone myself, I would find it really hard to sit down each day and know everything. I would be bored quite fast. To feel like there is room for maneuver, and to accept as well that, yeah, you can choose to be someone who fails because that's a useful thing, rather than seeing it as something that's very unpleasant. If it's part of your chaos that's going to get you to that 3-month goal, then that's not necessarily a bad thing.
There's no right way to do it. And I don't know if this is controversial, but people say fake it till you make it. And there's like theories behind envisioning who you want to be in the future and acting the way that you envision yourself, and that pushes you to that next step. So maybe sometimes fake it till you make it is that way forward as well, and the best way possible.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot to be said for, well, there's talking about confidence, and the faking till you make it can help you almost convince yourself for a minute.
Yeah.
That just get you through that conversation, and then you will actually be on the other side of it and discovering that you have made it, for sure. So talking a little bit about maybe those people you talked about, it can be a bit weird to want to do a startup, and yeah, it's an unconventional path, and there's plenty of people out there and it's not for them, and so they might be more thinking, I need to build my CV. What my path I think is, I want to go out into the world of work as I graduate, and I want to find my first step towards, you know, being the position in the company that I want to be. That's going to be a lot about CV. It's going to be a lot about being able to go into a room, have a conversation with someone you don't know about why you're going to be the person to help them build their company or their big dream. So students might feel like failure is something that's not to put on a CV. It's a thing that might ruin it. But you've maybe seen the opposite. So can you talk about how failure can actually help you land opportunities, or ways of helping you do that?
Failure can act as a tool, again, going back to that idea of redefining things. So you constantly, if something didn't work out the way you wanted, or you didn't get that job you wanted, you rethink, redefine, and better yourself and build character. So going back to remembering the very first job I ever wanted, I was like a big corporate, and that you had to work for them, and I went through all the interview stages and I didn't get it, and I think I just was crying for the next few days thinking, okay, my life is over. But thinking back, I'm actually glad I didn't get it, because I probably would be sitting here, my life would look so different, and I've learned so much, and it built my character, and Now when I get rejected, yes, I get upset. It's especially if it's something you wanted, but it's kind of like, okay, it wasn't for me, I move on. So again, that you create self-awareness, and it fosters resilience. So having that, and it's a really popular thing recently. We've seen like failure CVs. One of our speakers had a failure CV at every like stage of life. He failed at something, and that's something they're proud of. So putting that public, I think, is actually quite a cool thing. Just to you own it. So own your failures in a way, and say, right, I've done this, but I've learned from it. Because we always say if you've not failed, it's a red flag, because you've not grown, you've not learned. And if you have actually not failed, there's something maybe bigger coming that you might not be resilient enough to deal with, or strong enough.
There is that whole saying of, fail fast and then move on from that. I have to assume that you guys have plenty of failures under your belt. So that any you'd like to pull out and tell us about?
I failed pretty much most exams in school. What's your one?
I had my fair share of failures.
Oh, you've got a good one from last week, though. You should tell them
I'm
about
not sure. Well, I've told, we have an event in 2 weeks' time, and I've went out, like, scoped speakers. I told everybody it's the 25th of September, and then I went out telling all of our friends and family, and 2 of the 3 speakers said it's 24th of September. So I booked the venue for the 24th. 2 of the speakers were for the 24th. I announced on LinkedIn that it was the 25th. So that was my failure of the month. It worked out. It actually worked out in our benefit.
Okay.
So it was great. So it turned out in somehow in our favor. Yeah, but we had a fair share.
We've had it first.
And university, you're only allowed, where I went to fail 3 times, and if you fail a 3rd time, you get kicked out of university. So I was 2 out of 3, very close. But I'm here now. It worked out. And now I think one thing that students forget, there's so much stigma around, everybody will look at your grades, or I've never had any of the internships I've done or jobs ever look at my grades. They're after your skill set and your personality. People invest in personalities, not in the skills. Yeah. And we've learned that along the way as well. People invest in us because they like what we do, and we've proven that we can do things. And as long as you keep that in mind.
Yeah. And I think those failures in your life, you always remember them as that point, like that low point. And then it's like a low point at which you've grown from. So like there's a famous quote, there's a football manager called Alex Ferguson. It's one of the most famous ever. I mean, it's like he's doing his biography, and it's an interview at his end of his career, and they're like, right, Alex, what do you remember most about your career? And it's like, the bits I remember the most are the seasons that we didn't win, the seasons we failed, because they're the times when you realise who's with you and who's against you.
Okay.
So like, these failures are your defining moments in your life, and you should be looking forward to them, because after them is going to be a growth period.
Okay, yeah. I was talking to you about this just before we got started. I used to do taiko drumming, which is Japanese drumming, and they talk about being on a journey for your whole life to be the best drummer you possibly can. And this way that you walk along, you need to have people ahead of you on the way who are just a little bit ahead of you, because if they're really far away, you can't really see them and you can't work out how you're going to get there. If you have someone a little bit ahead of you, you can follow them, and that you will get to a point where you are looking at what you're doing and it's rubbish, and it's rubbish, and that can be really disheartening. But actually that's the best time, because you can see what's wrong, and that means that you're better than that, you just haven't got there yet. And so rather than being disheartened by how rubbish you are, the fact you're failing, that is the moment when you're actually about to make a leap and move forward. Because you can see where you're trying to get to, the next step to make, and so the next step will come because you can now see it. And I always thought that was a very useful way of thinking about everything, not just learning to become a good drummer, but learning to become really good at anything you want to be good at. If you had to teach one skill for turning a mistake into momentum?
Self-reflection. being able to reflect on the mistakes you made and being able to realise where you've went wrong and what you need to do to improve is so important. Like people sometimes get the wrong idea of what we're doing with Fun Nights in terms of like everybody, we're just putting failures out there. That's not the case, right? We're putting failures out there so you learn from them, so you can reflect upon them. And that's so important because we don't want everybody just to go out and fail all the time, because that's not the idea behind this. We want you to be able to deal with the failures better. And a huge part of that is self-reflection.
For me, adaptability. So I'm a person that tends to be really harsh on myself if things didn't go the way I put them in my mind. Johnny knows them. So being able to, when things change, adapt quickly to it is a strong skill to have. So especially if you fail at something, being able to just, okay, right, that's how it was supposed to be, to move on quickly.
Fantastic. Adaptability and having that realization that a failure on its own isn't very useful, but a failure that you can adapt to or a failure that you can learn from is the thing that is going to help. Okay, I feel like we have really gained a lot of knowledge and insight from you here, so I'm going to do some very just rapid fire questions. So can you give me one sentence definition of confidence?
Confidence is finding comfort in discomfort.
Perfect. Okay, can you give me one way to stop comparison right now?
I would say go out there and do it, right? Stop comparing and go out and get some action. Go out, speak to people and go and try the thing that you're comparing yourself to, whether, I don't know what that may be, footballer, makeup artist, whatever it is, go out and do it.
Thank you. And one thing every student should remember when they fail.
Always reflect. Don't just fail for no reason. Why did you fail? Find out why. What were the reasons? What can you do to improve? And implement that moving forward.
Thank you so much. We did ask our listeners if they have any questions for you, and Yuxuan contacted us to ask, how do you build a strong heart when you receive failure? Do you have any advice?
I mean, it's difficult initially if you've not experienced failure before, right? It's going to be a new feeling and you will feel overwhelmed. But it's just like what we talked about earlier. It's about rewiring that signal to be a good thing. It is a good thing. You've failed, you've got something wrong, but you're going to learn from it and you're going to get better from it. So it's just about rewiring that in your brain. It's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not the end of the world. You're getting better. You're going to improve. So just keep going.
The fact that you were talking about brain as well compared to heart, I wonder they feel it in their heart, and maybe we need to think less about feeling things in our heart when it comes to failure and more thinking of it in terms of what it can give us rather than how it can wound us, I guess.
Yeah, the more exposure you get to failure, the easier it gets. Through all these Fun Nights events we've done, we've heard so many stories that I think they unintentionally get wired into our brains, and we go through life just seeing failure as a normal thing. We just take that easier to heart and brain.
So maybe talking about it as well, coming along to a fun night, hearing other people who are probably highly successful, talking about the ways in which they also have made mistakes and they've learned from them might help you feel less alone. Can you tell us a little bit how people can connect with you or how they can get involved with Fun Nights Glasgow?
We run Fun Nights events quarterly. Best way to reach out to us probably over LinkedIn, Instagram, to keep up to date.
Yeah, we are both PhD students. So Dan is a PhD student at Glasgow. I'm a PhD student at Strathclyde. So if you see us walking around, just come up and have a chat. We're friendly.
And here's what I really hope that anyone who's listening today will take away. And I guess that's that confidence isn't about certainty. And it's about really showing up and giving something a go, being willing for it to go wrong, being willing to sit in that discomfort. And that everyone around yourself who you may be comparing yourself to is probably also figuring it out behind the scenes. Failure is not the end. It's just a training ground. So If you love this conversation, please do share it with a friend who might be struggling or stressing about the future. And just remember that you don't really need a map. You just need to take a single step. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for listening to the Inspiring Entrepreneurs podcast today. If you did enjoy what you heard and found it useful, please take a moment to rate and review us. It helps other listeners find us. And stick around for the rest of this mini-series, which is dedicated to helping students reach their personal and professional goals. We've got some really great speakers talking about topics such as what employers really want when you're trying to find your first step into graduate recruitment, and how to move your side hustle into a startup that can bring you exactly what you're looking for from life.